Hello everybody, Muttley here, and welcome to my highlights from the latest round of TASCAR from Road America. I was starting 10th in A lobby on this occasion, with my teammate Assassin starting just behind me in 11th. We were separated by just 5 thousandths of a second in qualifying. It would be a pretty even start for pretty much everyone around me. You can see the top, or the two just in front, have staggered a little bit, and a gap opens up on the left, but then it closes and there's a little bit of contact and a little bit more contact. And it's just one of those stupid Forza collisions where the front of my car just got welded to the rear of his and dragged us both off track. It should have just been a little bump and both of us should have carried on with virtually nothing happening. But no, we both dropped to the back of the field. Fortunately, it is only obviously lap 1, and in a spec series like this, it's a sort of spec series, it shouldn't be too hard to catch up to the pack if everybody else starts battling. Taking it easy down into turn 5 now. Yes, this is turn 5. I have checked the corner numbers, although I can't for the life of me work out how it's not turn 3. Whatever the corner number, I get a pretty good exit, and the cars in front were indeed battling as predicted, and I get a good run around the outside of the 96 that I went off with as well, so that's up to 13th for me. There's a tiny little bit of contact there that did actually seem to hinder him, but it was, again, it should have been ridiculously innocuous. That's just Forza's collision system making an absolute meal of it. I tried to make it back up to 12th, up the inside of turn 8, but wasn't able to do anything about it there, despite molesting the curb something horrid. The carousel, you can't really do anything around here, you just got to sort of wait to get on the power basically, and as we do so on the exit, I decide to finally, that it's calmed down enough for me to swap into my preferred racing view, which for this round is bonnet view. And a good exit off of the carousel with a good run round the kink leads me to be making a move around the outside of Canada Corner. And I don't quite know how I managed to hold it around the outside there, but that I did, and we do move up into 12th before the end of the lap. So a very eventful opening lap, and it hasn't finished yet because we're going to go defensive on the inside of the final turn, and finally settle back into single file. So I've dropped from 10th to 15th and back up to 12th again. It really is going to be one of them races, isn't it? Come on. This is a long wait for that cut, crikey. Right, here we go then, lap 3, and the car behind looks to try and make a move back up the inside. I give him a bit of room, maybe too much room. Ran off the circuit by running wide. Fortunately, I did just manage to stay in front, but you can see in the mirror there, he is right on my tail. And through the right-hander, nearly running wide again, but we do manage to retain the position. Jumping on to lap 4 then, and we do manage to have created a little bit of a gap to the car behind, as we've caught the two cars ahead that are both severely battling. Look to the right, look to the left going into that corner, and it wasn't quite to be, and I didn't get a very good exit either. They are almost too wide running down into turn 5. Well, I suppose we haven't actually got to turn 4 yet. I'm not sure exactly where turn 4 is down this straight. I think it's that bit. Yep, that, you know, whopping corner. But anyway, enough about that. I had looked to try and get a bit of a cutback as they went too wide ahead, but the guy behind me missed his braking point and unfortunately ran to the side of me. Again, fortunately for me, it wasn't too much of a hindrance at all. The guy that did hit me lost a couple of positions at least, I think. But again, it's just weird how Forza deals with its collisions, because that was a much bigger hit than the one I had in the first lap. Right. On to lap 5 then, or was we already on lap 5? I keep looking at my notes and looking at the screen and I'm completely losing count. Regardless of if it's the same lap or not, I tried to go up the inside into Canada Corner, and it didn't work, and then I'm going to lose even more time to the cars ahead by running wide into the penultimate corner. Back on the racing line for the final corner though, tucking back in nicely for the inside curb on the exit, using the perfect amount of outside curb without running onto it too much. And we passed the pit entry, which we decide not to use on this occasion. That would have been the earliest we could possibly have pit and still made it to the end on 2 14-lap stints. And in fact, nobody decided to pit on the end of lap 5, so nobody's going for that ridiculously aggressive strategy, at least for the undercut. They can still do 14-14 and then only 5 at the end, but you know what I mean. Anyway, the cars ahead were going side by side again. I think that was into turn 5. I've been rambling too much. We're already half a lap later. not quite that much, but you know what I mean. Anyway, good run off of turn 7. I'm going to look to the inside. Can we go down the inside of the number 23? We're still half a car there. He's going to run slightly wide on the exit, which gives him a really good run towards the carousel, and he does manage to keep that position. So on to lap 6, and I do kind of feel like I was being held up a little bit. Maybe not that much, but I could definitely go quicker in clean air, so I do decide to come into the pits at the end of lap 6. And now, because following on from what I mentioned about the pits being open effectively from lap 5, I'm now kind of pigeonholed into a very specific strategy. I've got to pit once more, and it's got to be on lap 19 or lap 20. Those are my only options to make it to the end of the race on one more stop. So if something happens, I've potentially screwed myself over, but I'm taking the risk and hoping that I can undercut some people. And we jump now to the start of lap 10, where we do undercut someone already. Sort of. We passed him when he was in the pits, but he was already behind us. Lap 11, and we're going to go past somebody else. I'm not 100% sure who that was, but I think they were quite a bit ahead of us, so that is one position gained. Lap 12, you can see I'm powering through this quite quickly, and we've jumped past one of the cars that was one of the two cars immediately ahead of us that were battling. Lap 13, and I jumped my teammate who was ahead of the two cars that were battling directly in front of me, so that's another position gained. And now we're going to gain another position here, but obviously not through an undercut, because I'm nowhere near the pits at this point on the track. You've got to look in the top left-hand corner now, as the position goes from 10 out of 15 to 9 out of 14. Just very unfortunate, somebody lagged out, and I thought it was worth mentioning so that you could keep track of my progress and positions, otherwise it might not have made sense. On to lap 16 then, and somebody else has pitted, and we're up into P8, and that was the other car that was battling directly in front of us. So on to lap 18 then, and we've dispatched of quite a few cars, and we find ourselves, or I find myself, in a very similar situation with two cars battling in front. But the number 24 gets a bit loose on the exit of turn 5, and I managed to go up the inside. There's a tiny little bit of contact as we go through turn 6, and he's still on my outside there. So I'm going to have the outside run now into turn 7. Again, a tiny bit of contact, both given as good as we got when we was both on the inside. And on the run down to turn 8, you can see there that I do go defensive, and he was slightly pitched to my outside and clear of my rear bumper, and now I can hold the inside around the carousel, and I've gained a position, and I've actually done it with an on-track overtake. I spent so long I spent a good couple of laps sat behind those two before my pit stop, and decided to bail and go into the pits because I couldn't get an overtake down on either of them at any point. And now that's happened. But look how far ahead the other car is. At the start of this clip, the car behind me and the car ahead of me were running nose to tail. Because I overtook the 24 that's now behind me, the time lost when we were going side by side has given that guy ahead such a whopping gap. Something else that gives people a whopping gap is when you make just horrific mistakes like this. That was just embarrassing, to be honest. I was gripping my controller too tight and at a funny angle, and the top of my left index finger caught the handbrake on the LB button as I was pressing the brake with the LT button. And so that locked the rears and sent me off into the gravel. Somehow there was a big enough gap so that I didn't lose 8th place, but I have lost a massive amount of time. I would have loved to have dived straight into the pits on lap 18 after that mistake and just clear my head and get on with it. Well, obviously, as I said earlier, I couldn't. I had to pit on 19 or 20. So I do come in on the earlier of the two, just one lap after the mistake. And I can now just sit back, although as much as this is sped up, I've actually got 25, 26, 27... You can see how many seconds. I'm spending all that time just sort of looking away, trying to think about something else for a minute, cool my head, so when we come out of the pits now, I can focus, I can get my head down, I can race hard, try not to make any more mistakes, try and pump in some really good laps if I can, and maybe, just maybe, try and catch back up to the two cars or the car that got back past me with that mistake. And I tell you what, it kind of worked. The gap was like 1,000 feet when that mistake nearly happened, and now you can see him just up there on the exit of the carousel. So when he makes that mistake and allows me within striking distance, all of a sudden, you know, just 10 laps ago, my head was down, I was dejected, I was just cursing myself for making such a stupid error. And all of a sudden, I've got the chance to get that position back, and I go to the inside, I brake late, I try and go up the inside into Canada corner, but we've already seen earlier in this race that you don't get a good exit from doing that. and I dropped a couple of car lengths back, and we'll have to close up and try again somewhere later. I tell you what though, it isn't going to be too much later. We're going to go around the final corner and sit in the slipstream, see if we can have a run, maybe do something into turn 1. There's not a lot to commentate on right now, but we just got to sit here, use that draft, get closer, inch by inch. We pull out, and after all that I've decided that I'm just going to tuck back in. But what a run through turn 1, lovely over the inside curve, you don't often hit that apex. And the 24 goes defensive into turn 3. I brake very late and nearly run into the back of him, braking too late, and neither of us get a particularly good exit. But I'm in that all important draft again, just inching closer, inching closer. He's sort of on the half defensive line there. Okay, now he's going fully defensive on the left hand side, although sometimes you can use that as a racing line. Either way, he leaves the door open on the outside, so I absolutely go for it. Half a car length alongside on the exit, using a little bit of the exit curb, trying to get a better run up into turn 7. Tiny bit of contact into that corner again between the two of us. I let him run deep on the inside line, I get the cut back, and I'm going to use the wider entry into turn 7, I'm losing count, just to get a really good run. Get my nose to the inside, under braking for turn 8, but it's just not going to work on this occasion. He runs that little bit, well, it doesn't even matter that he ran a little bit wide, he got a better exit than me, and now we're just tucked under the bumper, around the carousel, just patiently waiting for the corner to finish. And now we can put the power down and get the nose alongside as we run towards the fastest corner on the track, and I decided that too wide in there, not a good idea, so I back out and make sure we go through their single file. But look at that, I made another little, just a tiny mistake, and I've dropped just a couple of car lengths back again, so we're going to have to go and make it up somewhere else. How about we make it up into turn 5 again? We're not quite going to go for an overtake into that corner this time, but that is just a lovely line compared to the car ahead. And just look how close we are on the exit, just feinting for a little bit, feigning a move on the inside of 6, and once again just using that wider line on the way into turn 7 to get a really good run. He went over the curb a bit too much on the inside, pull half the car along the side, on the outside, go wide, cut back, but now I'm on the outside of the carousel. And I mean, this isn't really the place to be. I'm expecting him to just fly up the inside and be gone by the time we get to the exit of the corner. But it doesn't happen. We come to the exit of the corner, I plant my foot, and there he is in my mirror. I've cleared him. I've made a move around the outside of the carousel. I know it was mostly set up through turn 8, but I went round the outside. That was just an absolutely brilliant bit of racing, and as you can probably tell from my tone, yeah, I was really bloody excited. But as I've mentioned about the strategy earlier on, this is a very, very long stint for me. As I did pit on the earlier of the two options for my pit stop on lap 19, as opposed to lap 20, I've got to do a full 14 lap stint, which means I'm going to get very, very low on fuel, and my tyres are going to go very, very close to the edge of falling off a cliff and giving me no grip. And despite catching up a massive gap to the car behind, past him, I've overtaken him twice in this race, he's still right there as we go on to the last lap, and he's putting the pressure on me now, and I really am worried about the fuel and the tyres, and can I handle the pressure, and because he pitted a lot later than I did. He pitted a lot later than I did. He's got a much fresher car underneath him. I don't know if you can tell that. Just watching me go around turn 3 there, it just looked really cautious, and I'm going to do something a little bit different here. There's nothing major. If you're looking away, you don't need to look back. Just have a quick check at the times. But just look how aggressively I went to the inside, and then just let the car straighten up as I went back to the racing line. It didn't really work though, as I go a bit deep into turn 5. But again, using that bit of exit curb, didn't even have the whole car on it. It's not a big deal there. And into turn 6. It always seems to be this part of the track that we keep coming to, but we're here again. We're watching the whole final lap. Nice wide entry into turn 7. I really do like that corner. And once again, that's where the car behind struggles. Look at him just drop back now in the mirror. So when we're braking into turn 8, he closes up massively, but he wasn't close enough to really pile on pressure or get any kind of overlap. And coming into the carousel, again, he's just probably about a car length back now. You can see the Chevy badge. He's closing up again through mid-corner. He just takes that wider exit, and again you can see on the exit of the corner I'm just extending the gap just by a couple of feet, and we get a really lovely line through the kink this time, perfectly touching both corners, and again you can see the car behind didn't quite get the exit through there. And as the leaders now finish, we've got a couple of corners to go, and as long as I don't bin it from this point onwards, I should be good to come home in 7th place. I'm going to the penultimate corner now, hooking it to the left, sticking a wheel on the curb, over to the right, sticking a wheel off the track again. We don't have to go defensive, we've got a big enough gap, so it's the wide entry, back to the inside, wheel on the inside curb, car on the outside curb on the exit, not using it too much, and then it's just a drive uphill, and we finish, as you can see, with like 3% fuel and very, very worn tyres as we do a celebratory wiggle across the line. And yeah, 3% of fuel is less than half a lap round here, so it really, really was right on the edge. And there you can now see the results of this race. P7 from 10th on the grid and last on the first lap. I'm just ecstatic with that. My teammate Assassin didn't have the best of races. He dropped to P12 from 11th on the grid, but he's also in the top 10 of the overall standings. And I can't quite figure out how, but I'm 3rd, which I think is the highest I've ever been in any series. So yes, as you can imagine, as you can tell, I am just massively pumped right now and for the series as a whole. Because, I mean, look at that! We're leading the team's championship, which I think is a first for me since I joined the team. We're leading something. It's just... oh, it's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I hope you'll agree, and I hope you'll be back for the next one. So until then, goodbye.